Welcome back to the fourth and final segment of Go Gaddis Real Estate Radio right here on AM 920 this fine Saturday. My name is Cleve Gaddis. Thank you so much for joining me for another week's edition of the show. I love doing these shows, and I hope in some way that you find the information valuable. I hope that it helps you have less worry, less concern, less anxiety when you're selling a home or buying a home. And remember, if you want to connect with me, it is real simple. Go to gogaddisradio.com. You can actually just click on contact us, and you can have me reach out to you. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I don't act like even for a moment that I have a corner on all the correct answers in the real estate market. There's many questions that I get asked. I have no idea what the answer is, but in most cases, it's easier for me to find the correct answer than it may be for you to find the correct answer on your own. And I don't mean it's easier for me to use ChatGPT than it is for you to. It's easy for me to get experts who are in the industry who might charge you for their time, but they will give their time to me so that I can give you the knowledge that they have given to me. If you're looking to sell your home anytime in the next year, I want to remind you that there are many different ways, 4 or 5 different ways to sell your home in today's market. 20 years ago, it was simple. Put it on the multiple listing service, sell it. It was very, very simple. 25 years ago, an agent had to look it up in a book and tell you which properties were available so that you could go see them. Today, you can list your home, get a guaranteed cash offer, close your home in as little as 21 days. That's great for somebody who's in a hurry. You could list your home as is, sell it where is, no repairs, no nothing, and maybe that fits your situation better. You could also make some minor improvements to your home. We have what's called a rehab and refresh program where we'll help fund up to $15,000 worth of repairs. A recent example, we spent $3,800 doing some cosmetic repairs to a home. That home sold for probably $8,000 or $10,000 more than it would have otherwise sold for. And then last, some people need to go buy their next home before they sell their existing home. They can't put their existing home on the market until they know where in the heck they're going. And we have the ability to help you with each one of those 4 unique situations. I get calls from listeners every single week who just want to explore, what is my upside? Give me the 4 options and let me make a decision, and that is part of our plan. In order for you to get, or part of our program, in order for you to understand what the upside is on your property, is real simple. Go to gogaddisradio.com. Click on the upside, put in just a little bit of information. We'll reach out to you. I can connect with you over the phone. I can connect with you in person. I can connect with you over Zoom. Whatever works best for you. We can text message. We can do, I don't know sign language, but if you wanted to, I would figure out how to do that. If you wanted to communicate over a translate app in a different language than I speak, I'm all about it, because really what I want to do is help. I really feel strongly that I was put here on this earth with specific gifts. And one of the things is that I tend to think more deeply about things, especially agreements and contracts and things like that. I tend to think more deeply about what can trip us up in this transaction. And I feel like it's kind of my gift to help my seller clients, my buyer clients, all clients understand the things that I think could trip them up. Let's move into our main subject for this segment, and your land might feel like it's yours to do with whatever you want, but that's not the case. The truth is the city or county often has the final say in what you can do and what you can't do. So if you wanted to build a backyard cottage, or maybe add a second story, or open a home-based business, yes, municipalities can restrict home-based businesses. Zoning laws are what decides whether or not any of that is possible. Today we're going to break down zoning in plain English. What is it? How does it affect a property? And what's the right way to find out what you can and can't build before you even spend one single dime? Let's jump into kind of what is zoning, just a basic overview of zoning. I learned a lot about zoning. I was president of an association called the Johns Creek Community Association. From probably the city became a city in 2005, I was probably president of the association for, let's just call it 4 or 5 years, from 2005 to 2010. And we were very actively involved in the zoning cases that came before the Planning Commission and before the mayor and city council in the city. And so we learned how to represent member homeowners associations in these zoning cases. So zoning law basically is a local rule or law that divide lands into different categories for specific uses. The goal is, in many cases, to control growth, to maintain property values, to ensure safety, and to really create what the municipality believes is a good, safe, solid lifestyle. Common zoning categories in each area include residential, which could be for single family, duplexes, multifamily, up to 4 units. Commercial would be retail, office, mixed use, sometimes apartments, although sometimes apartments are on residential zoning. You have industrial, which would be manufacturing, distribution. Every one of the new Amazon distribution centers that you see out there for the most part is an industrial zoning. And you have agricultural zoning, which would be farms, livestock. And in many cases, all zoning in certain areas, like for example in Johns Creek, a lot of it was zoned agricultural until it was rezoned by developers so they could build properties. You also have overlay zones like historic districts. You have floodplains. If your property is partially in a floodplain, it's going to determine what you can do with it. You also have environmental protection areas as well. And so zoning controls what you can build in these ways. Number one, it tells you what structures are allowed to be built. Each zoning category, so if it says this property is zoned R4, that means residential 4, and that 4 means something. So each zoning category, if you will, has like an approved list. So on this type of property, you can build single family. You can't build duplexes or apartment buildings. You can build only 1 home per acre. You can build 1 home per half acre. You can have no more than 4 units connected in a townhome development. I'm just making stuff up here, but it tells you what is allowed. It also will help you understand what the height limits are. So in the city of Johns Creek for years and years, you could not have a building that was over 5 stories tall. Now in the new city center project that they're building, and I know so much about Johns Creek because I live here, they will allow height of up to 8 stories. The reason we limited it to 5 stories is because that's as tall as our fire trucks were to get in and put out fires. And so as we have 8-story buildings, we'll have to have different fire equipment that can fight fires in high-rise buildings. It also covers setbacks. What's the minimum distance from the property lines? How far do you have to be away from the front property line? How far does the building have to be away from the sides? How far does it have to be away from the back of the property? You also have lot coverage ratios. What's the maximum percentage of your lot that you can build on? In the city of Atlanta, I don't remember. I think they call it a floor area ratio or an FAR. And you can only have floor space that is up to a certain percentage of the lot. And we used to own some property down on Piedmont Avenue near the Botanical Garden. And I can't tell you how important that floor area ratio was because it determined exactly how big of a property the people who bought the properties who wanted to redevelop them could build. Now, it also includes the type of accessory structures you can have. Can you have detached garage? Can you have sheds? Can you have ADUs, which are so popular now, accessory dwelling units like a little live unit in the backyard? And in many cases, those are restricted or just outright prohibited. And you can also apply for what are called special use permits. Those are required for things outside of normal use, like, for example, a daycare or a church or something like that. So let's give a couple of scenarios here. If you wanted to build a detached garage, zoning might, for you, limit the size and the location, and it might restrict you from doing that at all. If you're thinking of putting a backyard rental unit in your property, you have to check out whether or not ADUs are allowed. When Tammy and I buy a home, and that home someday will probably be in the North Texas area near Dallas, we want to be able to have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 ADUs on our property so that her mother could live there, so that potentially my mother or a family member could live there, and so that when any of our kids, we have 8 between us, and we'll have 7 grandkids between us by next February, and we want them to be able to come visit us and have a place to stay. Would those be allowed? What if you're planning to build a pool or a pool house or a large workshop? Do you have adequate setbacks and lot coverage rules? Meaning, can you build? Have you already used up all the floor area ratio? And what if you want to add a second story? Do you have height limits? Do you have any neighborhood overlays? Things like that. If you're an investor or a developer buying a lot from multifamily housing, you got to verify zoning supports your plan, because if you want to put 200 units on something, it has to be zoned right. If you're thinking of converting a single-family home into a duplex, that might require rezoning. You couldn't do that in most municipalities in Atlanta. And building a mixed-use retail, for example, with apartments, you need compatible zoning or a planned unit development approval, so you get into some significant rezoning stuff. And so as you look to change the rules, if that's something you need to do, when you look to rezone, so if you say my property is zoned for this use, but I want to use it for another use, then you have the ability to go through a process to rezone the property. It's a formal process with applications, fees, public hearings. Everything is controlled by Georgia state law. If you're looking for variances, you're looking for exceptions that would be granted for unique property situations, like maybe you can get up closer to the lot line because it backs up to a national park or something like that. And also you have what are called conditional use permits. They allow you certain uses if you meet certain conditions. And my suggestion for you is, if you want to change the rules of zoning, you need to go through a reality check before you do that, because the process can be slow, it can be political, and it certainly it's not guaranteed. I've seen things flip at the last minute, and I'm thinking, what on earth just happened here? I remember being at Fulton County, knowing that board was going to make one decision, and right at the end, boom, one of the commissioners said something, and the decision went a different way. Quick real-life story. Homeowner buys property to build a tiny home for parents. They find out the zoning prohibits secondary dwellings without going through an 8-month variance process. Good grief. The lesson is always check zoning before committing to any build or buy. It's faster and cheaper to adjust your plan early than it is to fight the city later. To recap, zoning laws aren't just about whether you can run a business from your home. They really determine what you can and can't build on your land, right down to the size, the height, the location. A quick check of your local zoning ordinances can save you thousands and months of frustration. I appreciate you joining us for another week's edition of Go Gaddis Real Estate Radio. We'll be back same time, same channel next week. Have a great week, Atlanta.